So in Dominican Republic, there is a widespread belief that financing for foreigners are really bad. It's time to change the narrative of it's difficult for a foreigner to get a mortgage in DR. It's not difficult.
I know a lot of people talk about Punta Cana, Las Terrenas is fantastic, Santiago, Santo Domingo, and a lot of other beautiful areas. But until you visited the North Coast, it's not fair to compare any of them.
No.
Right?
December, Puerto Plata province will receive 86 cruisers. 86 cruisers coming to Dominican Republic, to Puerto Plata, North Coast.
Yes.
Wow. That's a lot of opportunities to investors here.
Is this a good place to raise children?
My daughter will wake up on Saturdays and say, I'm ready to go to school.
Wow.
Nice.
Can you imagine?
Welcome to episode 4, everything about financing in the Dominican Republic. And today I'm pleased to announce a fantastic panel. I have Caesar, who's a mortgage broker, Jacqueline, who's a chartered accountant,
Yes.
and Andy, who's one of the top real estate professionals at Team RealtorDR. And we're here today to talk about the financing that's available in the DR. And I wanted to start with, does the financing in the DR, is it good or is it bad? So Andy, I know that when we jumped on, we did a little Instagram post before. You said it's good, but when we talked off air, there were some bad points too. So tell me about it. Is the financing here good or bad?
Well, you know what? There's some advantages and disadvantages, right? In the U.S., as a licensed mortgage broker, you had to go through a lot of processes, right? Especially if you're dealing with the bank and you're trying to do like private lending. So it's more stringent. Over here, you're a little bit more lenient. You can go through the seller directly, have a lawyer actually draw up the agreements, and you can get approved and get it done within 30 days. But in the States, it's a little bit different. You got to go through a process, a qualification process, right? You have to make sure you pre-qualify with the bank so they know exactly how much money that you can afford. And then you go look for your property. And then that's the final steps. So it's a little bit more because they check credit, they want to know income. Over here, we've done some incredible deals here at RealtorDR where we didn't have to go through those stringent, qualifications. So it was much easier. So I would say over here, it's easier. I think it's better only because it's done easier. But, I'll leave it up to the rest.
Now that's seller financing. Caesar, from your opinion, as being a mortgage broker and being in the financial industry here for 20 plus years, working with all the major banks, what would you say? Is the financing good or bad here?
So in Dominican Republic, there is a widespread belief that financing for foreigners are really bad. It's bad. It's difficult for one foreigner to get a financing, but the reality that is not aligned with the truth. It's not aligned with the reality, because at the time that you know all the process and all the requirements that the bank needs to get a financing, that you're gonna realize that the process is same like in the US or same like in Canada. It's gonna be easier if you know what the documents, what is the requirements, and you provide that requirements to the bank. You're gonna realize that the process is easier than you think.
Okay, interesting. And Jacqueline, is it good or bad, the financing here?
It's good because, like Cesar say, you need to have the documentation good and proof over paper though you need. They need, for example, if it's the company, you need the paper of the company approved with Chamber of Commercio. If you need the taxes, do you have your company made the finance history for 2 years? Or you need the paper for DGI. Company here is the company government taxation. So that's, you need the information, and you need, for if your company have a friend, they need just know certificate, do you know you. So it's not complicated, just you need the person correctly.
And this is really interesting because I didn't actually think about this, but on one perspective over here, you have seller financing, okay, and skip all the, all the legal legislation, gray work, like California has like 100 pages that need to
regulations
with every offer, and we can make it happen relatively quickly. On the other hand, as a mortgage broker, you had the perspective about foreigners and financing for foreigners. And then on your vantage point, you talked about as like a resident and if it's available. For myself, the thing is, I'm going to say it's bad for this reason, and we can have a discussion about it, okay? Higher interest rates, okay, number one, all right? Number two, it's the term over here. and then it's the actual process as far as the appraisal goes. So, Cesar, what are some of the terms and conditions and interest rates that are currently available right now for foreigners?
Okay, right now for foreigners, there are you have conditions in pesos and in dollars. Right now, in dollars, the interest rates are better. For example, the interest rate starts with 8%, 8.25%, and there are banks that have 12% annually. So in pesos, there are interest rates that starts with 13.50 to 17% annually. But for foreigners, so if you realize, if you check, the foreigners, they want mortgages in dollars because the interest rate is better. But if you compare with the United States and Canada, one interest rate of 9% and 10%, they're gonna say this is high, but it's not high when you compare the both economies. We are in Dominican Republic, and the interest rate in dollars is 8%, but the interest rate for certificate deposit is about 4% and 5%.
So explain that. The certificate, what does that exactly mean?
It's the cost of the money. For example, if I am the bank, to borrow the money, I need to cap the money first. So all the savings of the clients, I pay interest to the clients for those savings. For example, if one client open one certificate deposit, right now the certificate deposit, the interest rate in certificate deposit right now is around 8 to 10%.
Wow.
Or 12 or more.
Wow.
Yeah.
What type of term would they have to lock in for that?
For 1 year.
For 1 year.
1 year, 6 months, 2 years, and 3 years. If you realize the spread of the 12% to 14% is only 2%, it's not.
Wow.
So that's the cost of the money. So it's for the reason the interest rate in DR, you can see that it's high, but it's not high. It's the cost of the money regarding what interest I'm paying those interests.
That is a very interesting point. I just came up with an idea and I wanted to run it by you. Let's say if we had a cash customer. So they're looking at buying a house up front.
Absolutely.
Look at this scenario. If they were to invest in a term deposit, let's say like over 3 years and get 10% interest and get the mortgage that was only at 8.25%, they'd actually be making money.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Where in North America, I don't know of any term deposit where you're going to be making that type of interest.
Not at all.
And what are some of the current rates right now in the United States as far as mortgage goes in terms that are available?
Well, in the U.S., you got to factor in the way the financial system is set up. There's different branches, right? For example, primarily when you want a loan, you will go to an FHA bank. A lot of banks are actually approved by the government.
For a Canadian, can you explain to me what that is?
Okay, FHA is basically banks that are approved with the government. They provide loans to you where they are guaranteed.
Okay. Yes,
so that allows you to put lower deposits.
Okay.
Versus if you go to a conventional bank, then that would require for you to put a higher deposit because it's not, guaranteed per se. So they're taking it basically on the merit of the client.
Yes.
Their credit worthiness, their income, their, job history, et cetera, et cetera. So they're factoring all these in to determine if they should give them this money. But that's why they require a higher deposit. Now, the last one is considered hard money. These are the guys that you go to when you want to get the short-term loan for investment, for rehab. Those guys, their interests are much higher. But the recipients of these loans are actually making money. They're probably buying it wholesale, lower value. With the rehab work, the future value allows them to have equity to be able to pay back the lender. So there's some differentiations there.
So I get it. So with the rates, when we take a look at it from your way in the explanation, it's actually not as big as we think. I know in Canada right now, I think the mortgage is around low 6. I think with the variable, I think that you could get it as low as 4.25. But for savings, there's absolutely nothing that compares to that. So that's really interesting. That's something that we need to discuss a little bit more to see if that's an alternative for some of our clients also. Now, as far as the deposit structure goes, how much money does the average person need to put down on the property? How does that work here?
The down payment here in Dominican Republic for get a mortgage is average of to 30%. That's the minimum 30% of 20%. So for mortgages in dollars, is the 30% and 40%, and pesos is 20% and 10% in some cases. So, so for Dominicans, there are banks that are granting loans for 90% of their purchase price.
But with higher interest.
No.
No.
The interest rate don't depend of the loan's value.
Okay.
No.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And I know in the States back in the day, you could almost get a mortgage with no money down.
Yeah.
But I think that's changed now since 2008.
Yeah, 2007, 2008 was the Wild Wild West. That's when I have to admit, the banks were really coming at with some incredible, interesting loan packages where there was no docs required. You had variable payments where you could choose if you wanted to make interest payment with principal, or just the print. That was just the Wild Wild West. And I think in 2008, of course, the market crashed and they got rid of that. So right now things are a little bit more under control. Like I said earlier, if you go to like a FHA-backed bank, you can get low interest like 6%, 5%. And if you go to a conventional, it's more or less a few points margin, about around the same number. But where you find high yields is when you go to hard money. Those guys are like 13%, 12%. So,
but as far as the deposit goes, is the normal or typical mortgage being like with 10% down, 20% down in the States from your experience?
Well, from my experience, FHA is 3.5% down. That's the most.
Oh, wow.
Yes, 3.5% down.
No, they only would have to put 3.5% down of the property.
Yeah. And,
oh, wow.
And once it is appraised and it's valued what it is, then they'll give them 97.5%.
Oh, wow. Now, they talked about the appraisal process, right?
Yeah.
What does that look like for a bank, the appraisal process?
All the banks have their own appraiser. They're authorized appraisers. So the bank needs one appraiser that says what is the market value of that property. And always, all the appraisers authorized of the bank, they are really conservative of the price.
Yes.
So when you are applying for a mortgage, so the bank gonna send their own appraisers to see what is the market value of the property.
And I've had many home appraisals done in Canada, and I've never had one come into what I thought my house was worth, or the market value of what it sold for after. So I understand the banks being conservative.
Yeah.
And when it comes to the property tax, how do they actually come? Well, first of all, what is the property tax number here? And how do they determine what the value of the home is for the taxation reasons for individuals and corporations?
Okay, so example, the taxable amount is for sales, for regardless, is the 27% of capital gain. But it depends the sales contract, or it depends you have registered in DGI. DGI is the government here for taxation for individual person or company. But do you want to do that if it's a property? You have property not operating, like do you have a land or condo apartment? You pay 1% for every year.
Of the appraised value?
Yeah, the appraised value registered in
And how often do you pay that? Just once per year, or is it twice per year?
You pay one per year, but the government give you a facility, you pay in 2 times.
Okay.
But the first quarter, you need to pay in May or April, and another is in October.
Okay. And like Cesar said, like the banks are conservative. Are they also conservative with the appraisal that the government does for what you have to pay for the tax for the property?
Yeah, when you pay it for the government, so you can do this a little way. You can go directly to them, but they accept your 15,000 pesos down in cash. After, you need to buy a check for pay your whole amount, or do your bank account transfer. They have one something you can take it, say DGI department, you can pay directly if you have the authorization.
But how do they come up of the value of the home? So let's say if I bought it for $300,000, what would be my taxes? Do they use my contract of sale to determine the price?
Yeah, if you have this for pay the capital gain, so you need to buy all involving your construction, you need to get the comprobante fiscal, and the government can reduce your cost, and you can apply. If you want to sell, you have the cost more than your principal payment. You can do that.
And I also, from what I understand correctly, and working with many, many clients, that certain properties under a certain threshold of price are exempt from property tax, from annual property tax. Is that correct?
Sorry, repeat me.
So, for example, if the home or the property or the land was, let's say, $150,000,
Yeah.
do they have to pay the annual property tax?
Is it the personal?
Personal, yep.
Personal, it do have a sanction here. If your property is 1,600 down, you don't pay. But if they cost 1,600, you need to pay the 1% difference for
Okay.
one property. If you have 2 or 3 property, they're gonna be summary and do discount 1,600 US, and you
Okay.
pay the difference.
Okay, that makes sense. Absolutely, right? And what are property taxes, just out of curiosity, in the States? I guess it varies from where you live.
Yeah. I mean, each county, depending on the state and also the county. Like right now, and I'm originally from Miami, where the taxes there, it's about 7%. Right?
7%?
Yes, 7%.
7%.
That's it.
Seven.
7%.
Yeah, 7%.
So you're telling me that if you have $1 million property, you're paying $70,000 in annual tax?
Oh, absolutely. Unless you go ahead and you apply for something called like a homestead exemption. If it's your primary residence, then you get a discount, but you're never zero ever.
Wow, that's incredible. I think in Ontario, last time I checked, or last time I was paying property tax, I think we were around 1.4%, right? And then you could actually roll that into your mortgage, and a lot of people did, which was way worse because then you have a huge amortization cycle and paying a ton of interest over it on that term.
And that's the uniqueness about the America, because what they do to kind of not make you feel it so much, they create something called PITI, which is principal, interest, taxes, insurance. So the bank or the lender who's loaning you the money, they'll wrap it all in once and just make one payment. So I guess it doesn't hurt as bad.
Yeah, sometimes it's easier to budget that. And I think one of the biggest differences from my personal experience is that a lot of the people that I know, and from my own experience, when you're shopping for a home in North America, sometimes you're shopping on a home based on what you can afford monthly instead of the grand price. So they're looking at what the monthly payment is, and they're making their decision on what to buy based on what they can afford as their monthly payment. Where I think that when people are investing here, they're a lot more aware of what the overall price of the home is.
Absolutely.
And they're very, very selective in making sure that they understand their total cost. And maybe that's from my limited experience, but that is my experience based on, kind of defining the two markets and how people actually make buying decisions. Now, Jacqueline, one of the common questions that we experience a lot is when somebody is, relocating here or investing here, they want to be able to open up a bank account. Is opening up a bank account as a foreigner, is that something that is easy to do? And is it something that the banks can do for a foreigner?
Yeah, it's not difficult. Just they need to go in with the correct person. Then they ask with a lot of requests. Normally, if you are personal physical, so you have your last 2 statements and how do your bank, because they know how is your money come from. And they need reference, like personal reference, commercial reference. So they need, if you have the company, you have the paper or the company, the reference to the company or they're living here. They do ask a little something like this. It's not complicated. They can help you in the bank.
And Cesar, what would you say are some of the major banks right now that are accepting of foreigners, or that are really promoting that side of their business?
The foreigners is a good market. Right now, all the banks are accepting foreigners.
Fantastic.
All the banks. Banks and cooperatives, asociaciones, is like banks, but with...
private banks?
Sorry?
Like more like private banks?
And no, they're not private banks.
Okay.
They are regulated for the central bank too, but they have other more. I don't have to say that in English, but
No, say it in Spanish.
so they don't have all the products.
Okay.
For example,
Yes, they specialize in certain parts.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, for example, the associations, they are specialized for mortgages.
Okay.
They don't open checking accounts. They don't make checks.
Okay.
So, and it's for the reason that they are different. But they accept foreigners, but only in pesos. But all the financial system in Dominican Republic accept foreigners. For example, Banco Popular, Scotiabank, BHD, Manesco, all the financial system accept foreigners because they. Let me tell you something. I used to work in the risk department, and I make a study in that time. That was 2012. and the morosity of the clients, the lowest one was for foreigners. So that means that the foreigners, they paid in time their mortgages, and it's for the reason that this target of clients have increased more than 60% of the last 7 years.
Interesting, very interesting. And I've had a lot of feedback from professionals like yourself talking about the stability of the Dominican Republic banking system, the financial system. And I know that we had a conversation off air, and you talked a little bit about some of the regulations and some of the reasons why the banking system here, the financial system, is very safe. It's very secure. Share with me some of those reasons that we discussed.
Right now, Dominican Republic, its financial system in Dominican Republic is one of the most regulated in the North Latin America. So the policies of money laundering and everything, they are really strong here, and it's for the reason that the growth of the bank on the financial system in Dominican have been really strong on the last 10 years. So, and they're gonna still growing because a lot of investors, for international investors coming into the DR to invest in the DR.
Yes, of course. They need to make sure that their money is safe.
Exactly.
Right?
So,
They need to know that if they're putting it here, that it's safe. And that's one of the questions that most of our clients have. It's like, if I bring my money over here, and I can speak from personal experience, it took me a while before I felt comfortable transferring my money into this country. I needed to know that it was safe, that it was secure, that I wouldn't have any problems about pulling it out when I wanted to spend it. And that's very important that people understand that you have one of the most regulated. You have the anti-laundering laws, and that all plays a role even in the pre-approval process. So if somebody's looking at getting pre-approved, I assume because there's different documents for like Canadians, Europeans, and for Americans, that there's probably a different process, or is it similar, just the different documents?
it's really similar like in all the countries. So what documents, for example, in the United States or Canada, needs to pre-qualify a client? They will need proof of income, credit history, and obviously the collateral. What the collateral is the property that you're going to put as guarantee the loan. And it's same in other countries. So it's the same here. So for pre-qualify or pre-approve a client, we're going to need proof of income. We're going to check the credit report. The credit report that the bank going to check is the three more popular is TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. So
okay,
Experience is for Europe.
Okay.
But they check that too. So, and that's the thing. So so if one client have very good income, very good credit score, and the property qualify of the bank policies, because there are properties that the bank don't accept. It's
correct.
We have to know that, and they gonna have to know that it's gonna be approved.
Yep. And I always used a mortgage broker back home. I never went directly through the banks. I just felt always that the mortgage broker was going to be able to get me the better rate. From my experience, I remember that they're asking for the T4, which is if you worked with somebody, okay, they would provide that as your document. Then you would have your notice of assessment, okay? And then I know that there is different paperwork that they'd need if you're self-employed. I forget the actual terminology. And in the States, what type of documents would they need to get pre-approved in the States?
Well, just to highlight off of what Cesar said, the big three, like you said, TransUnion, Experian, and Equifax, right? Now, the uniqueness about that is the companies actually pull all three credit, and they use the middle score.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So they're like, you're at a higher algorithm. Like most consumer retail stores will pull one credit, whether it's Experian, TransUnion, et cetera. But when you're dealing with a mortgage, then they pull all three and they go with the middle score. So it's
very interesting.
It gets really tricky when you're married.
Now, is it a middle score or is it a blended score?
Well, they sometimes, again, when it was the Wild Wild West, it used to be blended score. And then they'll come out with the average. But the banks just went with the middle score. So in essence, if you had like a high score, very low score, they'll go with the middle. So this, I think, was a way for you to maintain all three credit bureaus, right? Okay. That you have good standings.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for a resident, do they have a different credit rating system here, or do they have a different program for getting a mortgage pre-approval, different from Equifax and a union? What do they use here in the DR?
They use the same. TransUnion is the more popular here.
Okay.
This is the more they can use it.
Okay, but for example, if somebody wants to apply for a line of credit here and they're a resident and they have their cedula, are they not using a different bureau to see their credit history?
Yeah, the bank have a lot of system they can prove because we can go directly, but when you get your password need to be updated, your password or cedula, they can review all information.
And what type of popular banking options do they have for residents here or with the cedula? Do they have like a line of credit? Do they have different credit cards?
Loan, credit card. Yeah, they have a lot of things for your money. If you need like the business, if you are in the business, they have another treatment. Like if you are a start, like you are personal and you need to start like a small business, the government can help you with some programs.
And Cesar, when you were doing applications with the bank and with RealtorDR, what would you say is the breakdown of your clientele? Would you say that you're always working with a lot of foreigners?
Yeah. I can say that most of my clients are foreigners. 90%, 95% of my clients are foreigners. So as you told, I have more than 20 years working in banks, and in my experience, the foreigners are a good market. And it's for the reason that the banks are more flexible to do business with them.
Well, the lowest default rate, I'll take that as a win.
Absolutely.
But I think it's time to change the narrative of it's difficult for a foreigner to get a mortgage in the DR. It's not difficult. So when you have a good advisor, when you have a mortgage broker, I can tell you exactly what you need and what is the process that you can follow to get a mortgage. The process is going to be easier for them, and that's our work. So our work is help the clients to get the best options, financial options in Dominican Republic, and break the stigma that it's difficult to them to get a mortgage, to open an account, to pay the taxes. That's not difficult. So we are in the paradise, and we can do everything.
And have you always been more centralized towards the North Coast?
Sorry?
Have you always been more centralized to the North Coast?
I have worked in Santo Domingo, Santiago, the whole country. So it's the same thing.
And Jacqueline, have you always been more around the North Coast for your work?
Yeah, the most here in the North Coast, but I have clients from the Santo Domingo too.
And I want your opinion. Why are people choosing the North Coast? Why would you say that?
We have everything here.
This is the novia del Atlántico. That's the reason they love it here. They love investment. It's also always growing. The North Coast is growing. That's for the people coming to investment because they like. So we want to know so it's going to be like a family place. So the people coming to investment here and they stay with the old family working here, going to the school. So we hope this is going to be much better for the growing and the family.
Absolutely. And where do you see the North Coast in the next 3 to 5 years, Cesar? From a financial, from an investment standpoint, from a foreigner, what does your heart and your instinct tell you?
The growth going to be aggressive because if you realize that all the investors in, for example, Puerto Plata to Cabrera, there's a lot of international investors in DR. For example, if you check with Vin Diesel is building a big hotel in Puerto Plata, they're gonna raise a lot of employments, a lot of opportunities for the growth of Dominican Republic. That means if this is Vin Diesel that is doing this, why not other investors come to DR to send the same thing or bigger projects? You understand?
Yeah.
It's for the reason I think that the future of the North Coast is going to be really bright, and we are here to help the clients.
And I think when we talk about being really bright, and when I studied markets back in Canada, we had a student rental portfolio. I was always trying to pick the up-and-coming communities. The ones that you need a vision, it's like we're here now, but I know in 3 to 5 years that we have the potential to be here. Those are the markets that, especially for an investor or a foreigner that's curious about the Dominican Republic, they need to spend some time on the North Coast, because I know a lot of people talk about Punta Cana, a Las Terrenas is fantastic. You know, we have some major cities like Santiago, Santo Domingo, and a lot of other beautiful areas. But until you visited the North Coast, it's not fair to compare any of them.
Oh, no.
Right?
Let me tell you something. Now, that's
agree.
stats. That's a stats. For example, in December, Puerto Plata province will receive 86 cruisers.
Wow.
86 cruisers. That's
I see them going back and forth all the time.
Yeah.
Probably from your backyard.
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Definitely.
Imagine how many people can bring one cruiser.
Yeah.
Oh, thousands.
Thousands.
Well,
That means 86 cruisers come into Dominican Republic to Puerto Plata, North Coast.
Yes.
That's it. That's a lot of opportunities to investors here.
Well, Cesar, I can tell you, I can see it myself. I mean, one of the things I pride myself in saying as a real estate professional, I study prices and inventory. So it's my duty to keep my eyes open. And I would say for the 2.5, almost 3 years I've been here, I've seen nothing but construction. And also the phone calls have been coming in as well. So, and I don't know if I can talk numbers, but we're talking about over 600 transactions to date with RealtorDR. A lot of these deals were done with financing. And also some of these are new construction. And also I was blessed recently to be able to take an old boutique hotel and we were able to present it and provide finance it. And it didn't have to go to the scrutiny of a bank. The seller approved it within 24 to 48 hours with a few little checks here and there. So I can see the vibrant construction. I can see the excitement of people calling, wanting to be in a warmer climate. And I told you earlier, I bought some glasses, guys, for you. Because there's two things that I always tell my buyers when they visit is pack your patience and bring some sunglasses.
Give it to me.
I
got the ready ones for accolade.
I don't know which one. You can choose which one you
There
want.
we are. I think
It's always
it's
sunny.
probably a little bit. Oh, those look good.
Look at that.
Hey, there we are. I know that you spent some time in Miami. You're from Miami, and you have family all over the United States. You know, we did a podcast right outside the Hard Rock before. Like, what's going on with Miami? Like, what would somebody say who's visiting the North Coast from Miami for the first time? Like, what did you feel, and why did you choose the North Coast? And what would you say to somebody who's thinking about it right now?
Well, what I will not do is talk bad about Miami, all right?
No. It's
I have no back.
Yeah.
Obviously. But the thing about Miami, like, it used to be, and if you guys remember, maybe, oh man, I'm giving away my age, right? Do you remember the Golden Girls? What was that?
Oh, I remember that show. I think my mom used to watch it.
It used to be a part laid back. And over the last, say, 25 to 30 years, it's been party central. It's been robust, and it's a good thing. Why? Because we're climbing. And I think with that robust, with all of that traffic, it's starting to turn off a lot of the natives, and that's why they're looking outside of Miami. They're looking into the islands, Panama, Colombia, the Bahamas, obviously in Dominican Republic. So I would say, just a little bit of too much hustle, too much bustle. So people want to go ahead and trade their snow boots for slippers instead to walk down the beach. So I think that's what's been happening. They're still a great place to be, but coming to Dominican Republic just gives you that tranquilo vibe. Meanwhile, you eat organically. It's natural.
Quality of food. I think that's overlooked sometimes.
Yeah.
Right? Like you talked about it. You have a farm.
Yeah.
Right? And your family has a farm. Like what type of, fruits and vegetables are you guys farming?
My farm sister, they have dragon fruit. It's a good one for your health. They have everything like grapefruit, banana. They have plantain. They have avocado. Yeah, but they use organic products. His product just organic. That's the reason you're not gonna be held. That's the reason they're gonna be help you with the government. He say introduce some company for help this little company for introduce your more safe in your life.
Wow, that's fantastic. I
Yeah.
didn't know that. And Caesar, you have a Komodo.
A supermarket.
Supermarket. Sorry. Yeah, supermarket. No, yeah, because the Komodo is a small one.
You're the boat and the yacht.
Supermarket.
The difference between a boat and a yacht.
And which type of, would you say fruits and vegetables that you enjoy that sell the most in your supermarket?
In my supermarket, we sell all the fruits and vegetables, But my favorite is the pineapple. I love pineapples and apples too. And we have all those products in my supermarket. And if you want to visit one time,
Absolutely.
they are open.
There you go. And do you get those from like local farmers, like people in the area, or is it close by?
Yeah, a lot of local farmers goes to my supermarket and they sell of their products, their vegetables and their fruits too. And we always buy that.
And I know that all of us have a family here. We have children. What would you say to somebody who's maybe listening to the podcast and be like, is this a good place to raise children? What would you say to them?
To raise children, here in Sosua is a good place, and there have some good places too. One of the places is Sosua Ocean Village because it's secure. Casa Linda too. Lomas Mironas, that I know people that live there, and they are really because we have everything here. We have very good schools. We have playgrounds. We have everything here. We have beaches. We have mountains. We have North Coast is the is the Eden of the.
I think not only rich in food but rich in culture. I think that really, from my experience, sets the Dominican Republic apart from some of the other places that I've traveled to. Is the culture, is the people, and you have two beautiful young daughters.
Yes, I have one daughter, 2 years, another 4 years. So they are in school.
And being a professional accountant, a chartered accountant with taking care of many clients, is it easy to get like help or a nanny here or like people to help with younger children?
Yeah, there is a little difficult find the nanny, but the government help you some woman like me working, and if you can get the person they have plan take care of for help the mommy, because the school too, the public school, they have 8 to 4, and the kid stay all day in the school here, and it's helping that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And Andy, you chose to relocate your family here. Tell us a little bit about that decision and why you chose here.
Well, I think my situation is probably similar to a lot of people who are probably watching this podcast in the U.S. or Canada. I mean, I have to say I have nothing but great success in the U.S., right? I paid my dues. I worked very hard. I work a lot of long hours. But what ended up happening, you start to realize that's all you get back in return, right? Mm-hmm. Just a lot of stress, and you feel overworked and always at some point feel underpaid. But I think the transition for us was during COVID. My wife is in medical, and we owned a franchise called the B12 store. And during that time, during COVID, it was like, we were not off because we were essential service. We had to remain open. So we work all through COVID. We've seen people pass away, sad stories, colleagues of ours that is no longer with us. And it created like a stress on us, a stigmatized. It scared us, right? To the point where we took a 2-week vacation. We were always coming to Dominican Republic, right, as a family. But we took 2 weeks vacation to get away from that. Mm-hmm. And that 2 weeks turned into 2.5 years. We just kept coming back. And I want to say something that's important to me. And it is important to my family because I have an 8-year-old as well. She was in a really good private Jewish school in the States, right? But she would come home, and I'm talking about 6 years. She's now 8, but she was probably about 5 at the time. And she would come back home saying, "Daddy, I'm stressed." Can you imagine a kid already experiencing stress? And this is the contrast. When we put her in the school here, right? My daughter will wake up on Saturdays and say, I'm ready to go to school.
Wow. Nice.
Can you imagine that?
So the children, they love school also.
It's more like, in the States, your kids want to stay home and try to skip school. In this case, my daughter is up before we are. I'm ready to go to school. I want to go meet my friends. I go because the school that she's in is more of a natural, kind of like an outdoor hybrid school. So she's closer to the beach. So she comes home every day, dirty. I'm like, "Sweetie, you're dirty." She said, "I love it because we planted seed, we went to the beach, we climbed trees," and she loves it. And they're learning at the same time. So for me, that's a great experience about it.
Yeah, and I think
how old is she?
She's 8 years old right now. Oh, yeah. She wants to go to school every day.
No, my daughter.
She loves it too.
She's ready to go too. Yeah. My son, once we get him started, he's ready to go. But at 14, I get it. Way too cool for that now. Hopefully, this episode with the sunglasses doesn't scare him anymore. But So if somebody is a foreigner and they want to get pre-approved, what are the next steps for them, Cesar?
After they are pre-approved, is select the property. You have to put in mind exactly where's the property you want. We have excellent agents. One of them is here, and after they get the property, the bank gonna appraise the property, and the bank gonna proceed with the final approval. Prepare the contracts, and the closing day is decided by both parts, sellers and buyers, and that's the thing.
And what's the quickest that you've ever been able to fund a deal?
Sorry?
What's the shortest amount of time that you've been able to fund a deal from your past experiences?
In my experience, I have closed deals in 5 days.
5 days?
Yes.
5 days?
5 days.
Okay, that's not normal. Full disclosure.
Tell me in my experience.
That is not normal.
Because we celebrated that for weeks.
I want that client. I want the one who could get funded and delivered in 5 days. That's
Yeah,
what I
but
want.
the average time is 15 days closing. If the bank have everything, so appraisal, all the documentation of the client, in 15 days is enough time to close a deal.
I'm going to say if you want to work with RealtorDR, you need to start, and at least let's look between 90 and 120 days out, right? We start with just basic a pre-qualification, understand what you're qualified for. Then we start on your property search. You don't want to be, making a decision quickly until we know that that's the right property. And from there, let's leave a little bit of extra time so that we don't disappoint the seller and that we can close. So I think probably for the sweet spot for us is 90 to 120 days. So that means if somebody's curious about a property and they're looking at 2025 to buy, you need to start in 2024, okay? Because this is December, so you need to start now, right? And the best way that they can do that is probably email you direct, Cesar@RealtorDR.com. And I think the biggest advantage compared to your previous work experience, maybe in your work experience before you were working with one institution, but how many are you working with right now?
Three financial institutions I have worked before, but now I'm working with all the banks.
All the banks.
I'm working with all the banks because I'm mortgage broker, and now I have all the policies of all the banks here in the financial system in Dominican Republic, and they know me. They know that I know all the policies that they have, and it's for the reason I can tell you, and I can tell the clients what is the best options at the time that I pre-qualify them.
Absolutely. What a competitive advantage for RealtorDR. That's a W for sure. And Andy, if somebody's curious about learning more about real estate here, investing, getting a property, how do they get a hold of you?
Well, definitely you could go to my Instagram, LiveNowDR. You could just put the Gene. But listen, this is important for those who are watching and you're on the fence. It's important you understand that RealtorDR is not just myself, of course, and Bobby. It's a champion of realtors out there. I mean, great folks, speak different languages, have a lot of different experience and different backgrounds. So it's not just me, of course. I always give a shout out to my team because without them, I wouldn't be here. Because I remember when I first started, it was rough. So now that I'm here, it's only because that I was able to work alongside these great people. But if you're on the fence, a couple of things I want to say that you don't want to do. You don't want to do. You don't want to pump
I think
fake.
that's important.
It's a terminology that I use, right? It's like in basketball, don't pump fake. If you want to do it, make the call now. Reach out to me, go into my DM or go to RealtorDR, find the right agent, and at least start the conversation. With that conversation, it's going to yield you to know a little bit more, because one of the things I'm excited about, and Robert, you may not want to take credit, but there's such an incredible training system at RealtorDR. There's such a robust training every Monday. We're tap in. Everything from how to speak to customers, how to provide the information. And two things you stand on, Bobby, is standards.
That's right.
You believe on standards and you believe in consistency. Mm-hmm. So one of the things we don't do is stop. We're always going for you. We work hard for you, and we're going to get it done. So whoever's talking in your ear, don't listen to them. First of all, there's a saying, you don't take advice from the guy in the cubicle next to you about how to become rich, right? Mm-hmm. So call us the professionals and we'll get you there.
Yeah, and you know what? I was just exactly thinking what Andy just touched on. If you're going to take advice from somebody, take advice from somebody who's already done it.
Yes.
Right? Because I know from my experience, people were telling me I was crazy. What am I doing? It's never going to work. You're going to be back here. And you know what? I've never been happier.
Absolutely.
Never been happier. So by going with my instinct and following the people before me and doing my own due diligence, it gave me the confidence to take those next steps. And for anybody who's listening, I don't know what the next step is for you, right? Could be a vacation, could be accommodation, it could be a phone call, it could be an email, but you need to start somewhere. And Jacqueline, if somebody has some questions about property tax or personal financing here or opening a bank account, what's the easiest way for them to contact you?
Yes, they can contact me. My email address, Jacqueline@AracenaAssociados.com, and my phone number is 829-712-7955.
And we're going to put all that information in the description of episode number 4, Financing in the Dominican Republic.
Sure.
And, you know, is it good or bad? You know what? I kind of changed my mind. After this discussion over here, I think you guys given me the right amount of information to say that the financing is good over here. So good job, team. And stay tuned. Follow us on, subscribe to us on Spotify. It'll be on YouTube. I'm sure we're going to have some clips on our Instagram. And thank you guys for listening and watching. We appreciate it. Talk to you soon.